Shalom. This is Hadassah Basaiwan returning with the book of Revelation, chapter 19. And yes, this is part 6. I know if you watched from the very beginning of chapter 19, part 1, I said it was going to be 3 parts, but let me warn you, there's one more part after this. It's not going to be as lengthy as these past few chapters, but then again, I can't say. But it will be completed in part 7, this chapter 19. And part 7 has to do with the beautiful golden east gate. That's what it's called. And it has to do with the Messiah, Hamashiach, when he rises from the heavens and onto the earth and lands on the earth with his saints. So we're going to look at that in detail and see what that is and put it all together. Put this entire chapter 19 with all the different parts and components, the different prophecies, bring it all together so that we can look at it as one completed picture. All right? So now this is still chapter 19, part 6, and we're going to conclude the book of Zakaryah, chapter 14. It is because of looking at the war of Har Magadan, because the war of Har Magadan is not given in detail in this chapter, chapter 19 of Revelation. So we had to look elsewhere for the prophecy of this war so that we can understand what this war is all about. So that's why chapter 19 is a lot bigger than just 2 studies. Okay? So let's get started. This is part 6, the war in Har Magadan, according to the book of Zechariah, chapter 14, and this is the conclusion of this book of Zechariah, chapter 14. Now, in the conclusion of this book of prophecy of Zechariah and this war in Har Magadan, we will see that the 1,000-year reign of Hamashiach will begin. But before this comes to pass, the war in Har Magadan must be understood. So that's why I'm doing this study, so we can understand all the different things that will take place before this war comes to pass. And what must take place is Hamashiach will enter in to our earthly dimension. And that of itself is going to be filled with events, prophecies to be fulfilled. But we're not going to look at that just now. That will be in part 7. But there's a lot going on here. There's a lot, and most of it, with the exception of let me change my wording here. With the exception of the war, all of it, all the events, the prophetic events that must take place with Hamashiach and his people will be glorious. All right? Will be glorious. Okay. The plague that will strike these evil armies and kings in this war will also be used to judge the inhabitants of the Gentile nations that will remain on the earth after this war. So we know what this plague is. We know that this plague is the sword, the two-edged sword that will be proceeding out of Hamashiach's mouth. That will cause this plague to strike these armies and the kings in this war. I'm not saying that a plague is coming out of Hamashiach's mouth. No, that what Yahuwah was seeing coming out of Hamashiach's mouth that looks like a two-edged sword is light, his power, His word. He's going to speak a word. And that word will look like a sharp two-edged sword coming out of his mouth. Because when he speaks the word, it will strike down these evil entities. First, he will cast the three Satans into the lake of fire. And then later on, he will come. Not later on, but next, he will strike down these human entities, the human part of these entities. And when I say human part, I mean the agents of these Satans. These are the earthly agents of the Satans. We're talking about the kings, which will be the 10 kings, and their armies that they have gathered together. And of course, the anti-Messiah. So these are the earthly agents of the Satans. So he is going to strike them down with this plague, and we're going to see that in the next little while, what this plague is going to look like. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, that's nuclear weapon. No, it's not. There's no such thing. There's never been anything called nuclear weapon. That's all a lie that they've been selling us for years, and yet we've never had a nuclear war. Now, tell me, does that make sense to you? If they've been threatening one another for decades about nuking one another, and we've never ever seen it happen, why would you think now that there's going to be a nuclear war? If it's never happened before in the past, why would it happen now? All right. We need to take the stuff out of our ears so that we can hear when Ruach HaKodesh is speaking to us. Because these people, they are the offspring of these Satans. They're worshiping the father of lies, the father of great deception. And how they operate on the earth, they operate just like their father, the devil, the Satans. They lie. They deceive. And they even use props to make you believe the lie. All right? We need to be a little bit wiser. We need to be wiser. Not a little. We need to be a lot wiser than this. All right? Don't claim that you're awakened and you believe in a ball earth. Don't claim that you're awakened and you believe in nuclear weaponry. All right? Do you know there's still some of our brethren out there that would proclaim, oh yes, I came down with the big C. You know what that big C is? The fake disease that they told us about 3 years ago, more than 3 years ago. The big C, the Devok. Spell it backwards. All right? There's still brethren out there that will claim that they had a touch of it because I felt a little ache in my butt. I mean, like, seriously. We're so deceived. We cannot believe anything that these people say. We only believe what's written in the Word. All right? That's the only thing we need to believe. We believe what the Word of Alahayam says and nothing else. Otherwise, you're going to be sucked into their vacuum of lies. If you believe one lie, you're going to believe all of them. Because one lie leads you farther and farther into the darkness. So you can't believe anything that these people are saying. So there's no such thing as nuclear weapon. That's been debunked a long time ago. They probably took the videos off the internet. Because that's what they're doing now. They're cleaning the internet and taking off all the different individual videos that people have done to debunk a lot of the lies that they've told us. Right? And they put their lies on the internet. That's what they do. All right. So that's what this plague is going to do. And we're going to see that Alahayam is also going to use the same plague The plague that he's going to strike down these armies with, he's going to use to judge the inhabitants of the Gentile nations that will remain on the earth after this war. And for the 1,000 years. Why? We'll see in a minute. And we will see this later on in this chapter of Zakaryah. Now the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom are now one kingdom, consisting of the 12 tribes of Yashrael. All right? And we've seen the scriptures where Hamashiach descends on the Mount of Olives and transforms it into the Mount Sinai, and then Alahayam Yahweh plants his tabernacle there. He's able to go in. But we're going to look again, like I said, we're going to look at this in greater detail in the next study. So Hamashiach enters into the tabernacle and he reunites the 12 tribes, the two kingdoms, into one kingdom. All right? They're now walking as his royal priesthood and his ministers in his tabernacle. The 12 tribes will be walking in perfection because they have been cleansed of their sin nature. This will be contrary to the Gentiles on the earth. They will still have their sin nature, but because Gadriel, who is the last Satan, will be locked away and sealed for the 1,000 years, which will be the reign of Hamashiach as king on the earth. Alahayam is going to seal his mouth and seal him in the abyss so he cannot speak. And that will cut him off from whatever minions are left over. Nephilim spirits, they're deactivated as well. All right? They're deactivated. So because of this, they should not be provoked to sin. Well, we will not be able to sin because we don't have a sin nature anymore. But it's the inhabitants of the earth, the Gentile nations, that will still have their sin nature. Why? Because Alahayam is going to use the next 1,000 years to sift them even further. Now they can't claim that they're being provoked to sin because of the devils, because of the unclean spirits. He has locked him away and he's shut them down. There's only peace and prosperity on the earth hereafter for the 1,000 years. So there's no provocation to sin from these devils, from these unclean, from the devil and from the unclean spirits, because there's only one devil, one Satan at this point of time. There are 5 in total. The other 4 have been taken away. All right? But although this has happened to help them to choose righteousness, because that's what it comes down to. It is down to choice. Alahayam has always given us a choice. The 12 tribes and all the inhabitants on the earth to choose to obey him, to live in obedience, to live in righteousness and in holiness or not. There are only 2 choices. To follow him and his ways or not. Because if you choose not to follow his ways, then by default, you're worshiping the devils and their minions. All right? By default. It doesn't matter. There's no gray area where you say, I am not worshiping anything. Because in truth, you're worshiping yourself. That's the worship of self. When you choose not to worship Alahayam and say, well, I don't really want to worship the devil and his fallen angels. I'll just stay here in the gray area. No. That's the worship of self. That's still the worship of the devil. Well, the devils. All right? You have to choose either Alahayam, and if you choose not him, by default, you're worshiping the Satans. There's no such thing as no man's land here. No one to worship. You're in a gray area. There's no such thing. Is either him or not. So they're given the opportunity to choose righteousness. Only because Alahayam, he is just and he is fair. And he's saying, okay, for all these thousands of years, we've been bombarded by the Satans and their unclean spirits, their little foot soldiers, the fallen angels. Now, I remove them. He removed the bulk of them. And what he has not removed, he has imprisoned. And now there's going to be 1,000 years of peace. Let's see what they're going to do with it. I already know what my people are going to do with it because they're righteous before me. They have no sin nature. But these ones have a sin nature. Let's see what they're going to do with the 1,000 years I'm going to give them. I'm going to give peace. I'm going to give them peace and prosperity on top of that. Because those 1,000 years that we're going to live with Hamashiach, we don't have to go and pay no mortgage. We don't have to go and buy land. We don't have to do any of the above. All right? Everything will be there and free. Of course, the Gentiles can't come into our land. Well, they can't come into our city. He's cut them off forever. No Gentiles ever to come into our city. We're going to see that maybe in this study or the next study. But they're cut off. Even when they come into when they claim a portion of our inheritance, they're not allowed in our city. But they'll still have a portion of our inheritance because we have the whole earth now. The whole earth will be ours. And we will share it with them. But they will be the minority and we will be the majority. But we'll see what they're going to choose. And even in this study, you're going to see it. Yet we will know that they will sin because of this nature and the evil that is still hidden within them. They cannot help themselves. Evil which is inherent can still and will still be activated in a person, causing them to rebel. Yet a person can resist this provocation to rebel if they wanted to. So it's down to choice. Down to choice. You know, a lot of them are going to look at us and think, why do they have so much and we don't? They're not going to be grateful for what they have received, even though they're not deserving of receiving it. But there's going to be a measure of envy. All right? And you know how I know this? Do you know how I know this? Because many of them are going to join with the armies of these 10 kings. Sorry, not the 10 kings, sorry. With Gadriel. After the 1,000 year is completed, yes, they're going to multiply. They're going to have children. Their children are going to have children. And their children's are going to have children. They're going to have a lot of children. They're going to multiply because the Heavenly Father, Ha'aba, never wanted the earth to be empty of people. He said, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And the second time he said, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. But there will be generations that will be born, and they're all going to be born with a sin nature. Just like the 12 tribes, they're going to multiply greatly, even greater than them. But our children and our children's children, and so on and so forth, will not be born with a sin nature. So we will be forever righteous before Alahayam. Whereas these ones will have the potential to be rebellious. But it comes down to choice. It will come down to choice. The original ones that procreated all these children and their children, and their children made more children, they will have an idea of what they had to go through in order to get to this point. But you know how it is with human nature. They forget. They will forget. And not only will they forget about it, about all the hardships that they've been through, because this is 1,000 years. But there will be generations that will be born that will have no clue about what went on the earth before they were born. And so they will walk and watch and see us being prosperous. They will watch and see that they have to serve us. And they'll be like, well, wait a second, like, why do we have to serve them? Why can't we be like them? That's human nature, and this is sin nature. Sin nature, there's jealousy and there's envy. All right? And we know that this is going to happen. Yes, many of them are going to join with Gadriel and his armies. But we also know that many are going to disobey the command of Alahayam because of this same issue with the sin nature. All right? You're going to see it twice popping up. Twice. 2 times. Because they can't help themselves. Now, they can have the mastery over this nature, but only if they really want to master their evil desires. And it comes down to loving Alahayam. Loving Alahayam. But, like I said, because of this sin nature that's inside of them, even though the devils and the fallen angels and the unclean spirit, they're shut off. They're deactivated. Can't touch anything. They can't go anywhere. They can't speak. All right? So this choice to rebel is coming from them. It's coming from them. Because they want what we have. And they figured, well, we can just go in and take it. Why can't we? We just need a leader to take us there. And when Gadriel shows himself, because he's going to be released in chapter 20, many are going to ride with him because they've been forming this idea in their mind. Some of them will comply to Alahayam and his command, and then there's some that will not. And even the ones that comply, in their hearts, they're not really there to worship him. They just do it to survive. And they figure, okay, let's multiply, get as many children as we possibly can, because one day One day we're going to come against these people and take what they have. That's their mindset. This is the mindset of sin. To take what does not belong to you. Not being grateful for what they have or for what you have. That's sin. And that's the sin nature. It is for this reason why Alahayam will give the inhabitants on the earth all the help they can receive by locking away Gadriel and sealing him. And the inhabitants of the earth will also be living a peaceful and prosperous life for the 1,000 years, with no evil coming against them. Imagine living in a world where there's no sin, there's no evil, there's no one there to provoke you, to tempt you. This is what these people are going to have. Will they be grateful for it? A few of them will, a remnant of them will be. Yet the evil hidden deep within them, will rise to the surface in the form of rebellion against the command of Alahayam to come to worship him and to bring their offerings, which some will not. They have to bring their offerings. They have to worship him, and they have to come near to the city because they can't come into the city. But they have to bring their offerings for the Feast of Tabernacles. We're going to see that in a bit. But some will not. Well, let's look at Bara'ashayah before we get there to that point. The book of Genesis chapter 4 verse 6. And Yahweh said unto Cain, who is Cain, why are you wroth? Why are you angry? And why is your countenance fallen? Because he has his face, as we will say in the Caribbean, he has his face all set up. Set up like rain, right? He's angry. You know, you can tell when someone's angry by looking at their face. All right, this is how Cain was looking. If you do well, shall you not be accepted? And if you do not well, sin lies at the door, and unto you shall be his desire, and you shall rule over him. Now, this is the time when Cain will bring his bits and pieces to, he will bring the least. I'm telling you, this sin nature, I can't wait to get rid of it. It was Ahabal, who was his brother. They were not twins. No, because Cain was born with a sister. He was a twin, but his twin was a female. And Habal was born with a twin, and his twin was a female as well. And back in those days, because the bloodline was pure, it was okay for them to marry one another, to have children, to multiply. Anyways, that's another story for another time. And that's how the earth was populated. Cain was supposed to marry Abel's sister, and Habal was supposed to marry his sister. But anyways, that's, like I said, a story for another time. But Habal was righteous. He loved Alahayam, and he offered up the best to Alahayam. Whereas Cain, he just looked for he just looked for what he did not want. All right? He was not interested in giving the best of what he had. But Habal did. And when when his offering was accepted, yes, when Habal Yes, because Habal was a shepherd. All right, so he looked for the best in his flock. Whereas Cain was a farmer. All right. So Habal, when he gave the best of his flock and he sacrificed it accordingly, the way how Alahayam taught Adam Hawa to offer their sacrifices. But Cain now, he will look for the rotten fruit to offer it up to Alahayam. And Alahayam rejected his offering, but he received Habal's offering but by fire. That's how he would show when he approved the offering. Fire would come down and consume the sacrifice, the offering, whether it was fruit of the fruit of the trees or um, the vegetables, whatever he was growing, or an animal sacrifice. Anyways, so Habal, his offering was accepted, Cain's was not. And of course, he got jealous. He was envious. And he got angry because that's the nature of sin. That's the sin nature in action. And this is Yahweh speaking to Cain and said, but son, why are you angry? Right? Why are you upset? He said, if you have done well, would you not have been accepted? If you had given me the best of your produce, whatever it was he was growing, do you not think that I would have accepted it? But if I'm not accepting it, it means something is wrong with it. Now, instead of getting angry, why not try to fix the problem? And then he warned him. He said, listen, this anger because of jealousy of your brother isn't going to stop there. Because the nature of sin takes you down to the very bottom where you can't find your way back out. Takes you deep in darkness where you cannot find your way out. But I'm warning you, there's sin lying at the door of your heart. But you have the power to overcome it if you do well. Throw away this sacrifice and bring me another. Bring me the best of what you have, and that will fix the problem. But that's not what Cain did. Cain continued to walk in the anger that he felt towards his brother. And when the time was right, he killed him. And then he became a vagabond for the rest of his life. No, it was all his children that died in the flood, by the way. All of his children died in the flood because they living in the valley with the devils, with the fallen angels, living in wickedness. Those were the children of Cain, and they all died in the flood. So the very same thing you see here in Bara'ashayath, chapter 4, verse 6 and 7, is showing you when you have a sin nature that you don't have, you're not keeping this sin nature in check. You don't have control. You're not master over your sin nature. You're going to get angry. You're going to be envious. You're going to be jealous. And you're going to go one step further to try to destroy the thing that comes between you and what you want. And what these wicked ones on the earth will want is what we have, our land. And everything that's in the land. We're going to have gold, we're going to have silver, you're going to have great wealth. And they're going to want it. Even though they're going to have a portion of it, they're not going to be poor. But they're still going to want more. They're going to want what we have. And in fact, all of what we have. All right? It's unfortunate, but this is going to happen. And it's going to happen. And it's showing us that it's going to happen in several ways. Let's read on. Cain was warned about the sin of murder at the door of his heart, yet he did not heed the warning. These Gentiles will become calloused in their hearts when it comes to the worship of Alahayam. But more will be spoken about this later on. They're going to become callous. You know, a lot of them are going to feel, but why we have to come up there? Why we have to bring a sacrifice? Why? And with each generation that is being born, it will become less and less important to them. Not all of them, I believe a few of them are going to become more inclined, right? A few of them will become more inclined, but a lot of them will not. A lot of them will not. They will have this thing in their hearts like, I really, really don't want to go, but I'll go. I'll go because if I don't go, something bad is going to happen to me. But it's not out of love that they're going to bring their offerings. Okay, so now let's look at chapter 15 and chapter 15 of of Zechariah chapter 14. And before we look at that, let's take a look back at, and I should have included that in looking at the plague that and why the plague befell them. Let's take a look at that. Let me see if I can find it. Yes, this is it here. Before we move on, let's take a look at the plague that will come upon the kings. Because we're going to see this plague being used again against the inhabitants of the earth, the Gentiles. Keep saying Revelation, but it is Zakaryah chapter 14, verse 12. And this shall be the plague wherewith Yahweh will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. And it shall come to pass in that day that a great tumult from Yahweh shall be among them, and they shall lay hold every one on the hand of his neighbor, and his hand shall rise up against the hand of his neighbor. So they're fighting against each other while at the same time they're melting. So it's not really a war per se. They're coming out to war against us, but they're going to end up fighting against each other and melting where they stand. So this is the plague, all right? Remember this plague. This plague is going to come back to the inhabitants on the earth when they refuse to come to bring their offerings. All right? So let's look now at verse 15 of Revelation. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Of Zechariah chapter 14. And so shall be the plague of the horse, of the mule, of the camel, and of the donkey, and of all the beasts that shall be in these tents as this plague. So it is clear and evident that these creatures coming, meaning that, and why I call them creatures. Remember from the previous studies, the one of the vials that was poured out brought darkness upon the people, upon their minds, transforming them now to be like creatures. So they look hideous, now they are hideous. Throughout. All right? They're no longer human because they can't think like a human anymore. Alahayam has brought darkness upon their minds. So they're full of sores, oozing sores, they're scorched, and now they are acting like creatures of darkness. So that's why I call these creatures. And they're going to come on their horses to come against Hamashiach and his people. So they're coming in their armies. They will ride horses and mules. All right? They will ride the horses and mules. So a mule is it is the combination of a horse and a donkey. That's how you have a mule. And why a lot of you see the mule throughout in the scriptures, they love the mule. Why? Because they have both qualities of the horse and the donkey. The donkey is very good for they're like a beast of burden, but they're very small. And the horses are a little bit more tender. They're not as strong as a donkey. But the mule now combines the qualities of both horse and donkey. They're strong. All right, they're a lot stronger than a horse, but not as strong as a donkey, of course. But they're still strong, and they're big too. They're bigger. They look almost like a horse, except they have certain qualities of a donkey. But they're used extensively as in the armies because of their nature. Apparently, they have a better nature than a horse. All right, they're a lot more. They're smarter, apparently, and they're stronger than a horse. So that's why you will see the horse and the mule. These are the animals that they will ride. And while the donkeys and the camels will be for burdens, and as they are called, beast of burdens. A camel can carry a whole lot more than a donkey, but they're going to be needed to carry the silver, the gold, the apparel, the food, and the camping gear, and all the other things that they think they will need while they ride out to our land. All right? As this will be a great multitude, think of how much greater this company will be with their beast of burden accompanying them. So it's going to be a huge group coming. That's why Alahayam said, multitudes, multitudes, in the valley of decision. Because there's going to be a lot of people, creatures, I would say, on horses and mules, and they're going to have their animals with them, bringing their goods, bringing their stuff. And and the funny thing about it, they're bringing their stuff for us. But the same plague that will strike them down will be the same plague that will strike down the horses, the mules, the camels, and the donkeys. Why? Because Alahayam doesn't want them. He doesn't want their animals. Kill them off. Not only will the plague destroy the nations, but it should be the king, the armies, but it will also destroy their beast of burden and their rides. All that will be left will be their substance, which will be our great repayment or payment for the many generations of slavery, doing hard labor, making their ancestors very wealthy, while our forefathers were destitute. So all those generations where our forefathers worked for nothing, worked for chicken feet and pig's blood and pig entrails. All right? All those generations, we're going to get our pay. It's coming back to us. That's our reparations. That's why I said to you, stop going after these people for reparations today. You don't need money. What are you going to do with it? You can't take it with you where you're going. Oh, well, maybe if you're going to another country or whatnot. But if you want to enter into the kingdom, you can't bring money with you. I'm talking about the southern kingdom. The northern kingdom, well, they're going to have great wealth. They're going to be collecting their wealth all along the way. Cattle and flocks and herds, they're going to be collecting it all along the way to the land of Yashrael. But the southern kingdom, we're just leaving with the clothes on our backs. Because everything that we need and want, Alahayam will have for us in his kingdom. So going after reparations make no sense whatsoever, because they're going to take away every single dime that you have in the bank. Have you not noticed what they're doing right now when now that they're taking physical money out of circulation and they're introducing digital currency? Have you not seen that? Does that not kind of pierce your mind to realize that going after reparations make no sense? How are you going to collect it? How are you going to keep it? You put it in the bank and one day you wake up, the banks are done. If you want your money, you got to go and get a digital ID. In order to get a digital ID, you need to go and get a digital passport of the toxon. And in order to do that, you got to go and take it. And even after you do all that stuff, they're still not going to give you anything. Why do you think they're shelling out little $100 here and $100 there to get you to go and take the toxon? To go and get your digital ID? Why do you think they're doing all of this? Because they know at the end of the day, every single dime that's in the banks, all they got to do is close the banks, shut them down, and everything that's in the bank will be theirs. Everything that in the banks worldwide will be theirs. They can do it. They've done it before. The I call him Trudy Boy. The Prime Minister in Canada, he did that. Everyone that contributed towards the convoy, he shut down their bank account and seized their money. Don't tell me that they can't do it. They can do whatever they want to do now because they have the right people in place. What we need to work on is our relationship with Alahayam to make sure that we get out of here. Because if we don't get out of here, then that means that we're going to face his wrath, his judgment, and destruction when that happens. That's what we need to focus on. Forget about money. Forget about things. They don't matter. They don't matter. We are going to get what's coming to us. Read it here. The silver, the gold, and the great apparel, all of that will come to us in abundance. And we didn't even have to do anything. We didn't even have to lift our pinky finger to get it. We just had to sit back and wait. Some of our people are impatient. They want money now. They hear about reparation, they start salivating. All they have to do is hear a YouTuber talk about reparations and they want to jump on board. Salivating about $1 million, $2 million, $150,000, whatever the case may be. They start salivating. And he's like, yeah, I'm in that. I'm for that. And you end up losing your inheritance altogether. Because once they hook you into thinking that they're going to give you something, and all you have to do is sign on the dotted line, meaning do what they tell you to do in order to get it, many of our people are going to go there. Many of our people are going to compromise themselves to get the few dollars that they promised them that they will never give them. But when they realize it, it's going to be too late. You can't, whatever they put inside of you, you can't tap it out. You think you can just stick, you could take a needle and you could put stuff in you. You can't take it out. When you make a bread, a bun, a loaf of bread, and you put all the ingredients together and you bake the bread, you think you can, you can separate the flour from the yeast and from the water, from the butter or whatever the ingredients are. You think you can separate it after it's done? It's done. Don't listen to these foolish people. They're telling you that you can pray it away. Pray what away? Pray what away? And who are you praying to? Because if you're listening to the right person in the first place, you would not be tempted to go and do something so foolish, like sacrificing your life and end up in the lake of fire. We still got our people out there telling, I don't know, just saying in general to people that this is not the mark of the beast. All right, I know I'm a little bit off topic here, but I need to say this. There's still many people out there with their YouTube channels telling you that this is not the mark of the beast. All right? I heard this up to a couple of days ago. This false prophet telling people that, in fact, I'm not even going to repeat it. What they're insinuating is that this toxin is not the mark of the beast. And if you did it, well, just pray and the Most High is going to forgive you and you'll be okay. Okay. If that's what you think. But you see, these people do say these things to keep subscribers. Right? They want subscribers because the more subscribers you have, the more money they make. They're in it for the money. So they'll say anything that will entice you, that will tickle your ears, and to keep you clicking on their channel, their messages, whatever it is that they're putting out there, the false teaching, everything. Because every time someone does that, they make $1. They don't really care about you. They don't care about you. They're making money. All right? And that's why you have the ones pushing this thing about reparations. And they know people love hearing about reparations. So they talk about it, they sing about it, they dance about it. And people are like, yeah, word, fire. Meaning to say that, oh, that's a hot word. All right. We need to stop this. That's what we need to do. We need to stop it. All right, let's move on. Verse 16 of Zechariah chapter 14. And it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of the nations, of all the nations which came against Jerusalem, shall even go up from year to year to worship Hamalak the king, Yahweh ol Sabaoth, Yahweh of hosts, and to keep the feast of tabernacles. So every year, from year to year, they have to come up to worship Hamashiach, Yahweh ol Sabaawat. So Yahweh of hosts, meaning host of heaven, and the host of the 12 tribes. Host speaks of armies. So his armies of angels and his armies of his 12 tribes. Now, Hamashiach is king, and so is Yahweh. He is our king. There is only one king. They share the title. All right? They share the title because Hamashiach is the expressed image of Yahweh. Yahweh, Alahayam, he is spirit. But Hamashiach is the physical representation of Alahayam Yahweh. Yet he is his son. They're two entities, they're two people, father and son. All right? But they have the same attributes. So when we call Hamashiach king, we're also calling the father king. When we call the father king, we're also calling Hamashiach king. All right. So he wants them, the nations, all that are left of the war, all that were the ones that were destroyed by Hamashiach. He said now from year to year, they have to come and keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Why the Feast of Tabernacles? Because that's the last feast to be fulfilled. The other two feasts, because there are three feasts that are left, which will be the Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and the Feast of Tabernacles. The Feast of Trumpets has already been fulfilled at this point of time because Hamashiach is going to use the trumpet to call together his 12 tribes, the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. He's going to bring them together with him in the tabernacle, the one that he will establish on top of Mount Sinai. Now, we've looked at this before. And why he is there with the 12 tribes, because that will be the trumpet, the Feast of Trumpets fulfilled. The next feast that will be fulfilled will be the Day of Atonement. Now, the Day of Atonement, like I've said, is called the Day of Afflicting Your Souls. Why? Because we are looking ahead to the day when we are going to be reconciled to the Father. But until then, we have to enter into a somber time with him because of what our forefathers have done, what their forefathers have done, what they've done, what we've done. So this is a day where we are coming before, and I'm speaking of us now, we come before him, and it becomes a somber day. A day where we recall all the times that we have failed him and all the times that he has rescued us. Even to the point where he sent his son to atone us of our sins. But for us today, it's a somber day. A day where we afflict our souls, because what happens to you when you think about all the terrible things that you have done against a person? It makes you upset. It makes you sorry. So this day, we're reflecting not only on the things that we've done that went against Alahayam, but the things that our forefathers have done. And you know why we need to remember what they've done? So that we don't do it too. All right? Yes, we have forgiveness from Alahayam, but we need to remember all the mistakes that our forefathers have done and make sure that we don't do them. So this Day of Atonement it has two purposes. One, to remind us of all the evils that we've done against Alahayam, and secondly, for us to look ahead that one day this will be no more and we will be eternally atoned, eternally reconciled. That was the word I was looking for, to Alahayam. But until that time, we have to keep being sober on a somber on this day, remembering what we've done, what they've done, what our forefathers have done, and what we have done. However, when we enter in to the tabernacle on Mount Sinai, our sin nature is removed, we have eternal life, we're entering in as priests and ministers of Alahayam. Two kingdoms that need to be reconciled together in the hand of Hamashiach. We're going to look at that in the next study. And what he's going to do there is he's going to offer up sacrifices and offerings to celebrate the reconciliation of the 12 tribes together, to celebrate the reconciliation between him and his people forever, to celebrate the reconciliation between the 12 tribes and Alahayam Yahweh. So it will not be a somber day. It will be a day of celebration. And that day of atonement is fulfilled. So the only feast that is left now at this point of time will be the Feast of Tabernacles, where year by year, from year to year, the Gentiles will have to bring their offerings. They have to come up to Yerushalayim. They can't enter into our city, but they have to come up to the place that will be given to them to bring their offerings. Then we will take it from there. Remember, it's going to be many of us now. 12 tribes. All right? They will not be able to walk in our city ever again. Our city, Yerushalayim, will be made holy, just like our tabernacle is holy. They can't even, if they can't come into the city, they will not be able to go up to the tabernacle. So it only makes sense that they will be on the outskirts bringing their offerings. There will be a place allotted for them to do this. Alahayam said it. He will not allow any Gentiles to trod in his city ever again. And even though they have come in to a portion of our inheritance, and they are not, I'm talking about after the 1,000-year reign. Even after the 1,000-year reign, they're still not allowed into our city. And even though they might have they will have a portion of our inheritance, and they will come into covenant after the rebels are weeded out and is the righteous remnant of the Gentile nations, they still will not be permitted to come in to our city. All right? They will not. He said it in his word. He said it twice. 2 speaks of what? Witness, confirmation. All right, let's read on. Those people of the Gentile nations who refused to be worshippers of these beasts, who became worshippers of Alahayam, will be the ones left of all the nations. In other words, the remnant. So there will be a remnant of the Gentile nations who refuse to worship the beast and become worshippers of Alahayam. They will refuse to come against Yerushalayim, speaking of Hamashiach and his saints in the war at Har Magadan. These will be the ones that Alahayam will not destroy, but he will allow them to come up to the border of Yerushalayim to bring their offerings to him for the Feast of Tabernacles yearly, and I have that in quotations. Why? Because there's no time. There's no more time. But let's read on. Let's see where this is going to take us. The prophecy is letting us know what life will be like on the earth once Hamashiach establishes his government, his priest, his city, his tabernacle, and his worship. The Feast of Tabernacles will be the last feast to be fulfilled by the second return of Hamashiach. This particular event is in reference to Alahayam tabernacling with his people, where he will be dwelling in our midst and be Alahayana or Alahayam, and we will be his people. This event is set to take place after the war of Gog and Magog, when the entire earth will be at rest forever. So, Alahayam tabernacling with us, and the fulfillment of the Feast of Tabernacles will occur after the war of Gog and Magog, when everything is renewed. All right? Now, it will be at this time when there will be a new heaven and a new earth and a new Yerushalayim. However, according to the wording of this verse in this prophecy, the renewal of the heavens and the earth and Yerushalayim have not occurred just yet. Therefore, this last feast, called the Feast of Tabernacles, will be the last and only feast to be celebrated. Hence, it was the only one named where the nations had to bring their offerings. Now, let me just say this. I know we say that, yeah, this is the last feast to be celebrated because it has not yet been fulfilled. But after all the things that we have been through as a people, and I'm just saying this, I could see that all the feast days that Alahayam had given to us, waiting for our redemption, whether Hamashiach coming the first time or the second time, I could still see it as a point or events to celebrate even after their fulfillment. It's almost remembering what he has done for us. We're not going to remember the evils. No, we're not going to remember the wicked things that our forefathers have done, but we will remember the glorious things that he did because of these feasts, where he preserved our firstborn in Passover, and so on and so forth. All right? There will be events to celebrate, to remember them as pivotal times in our history where we drew even closer to the mark. Closer and closer, by each event, we drew closer to the mark. The mark of what? The mark of righteousness and holiness. To be called the people of Alahayam. It was not an easy feat. We have gone through a lot. And these feast days were important to Alahayam from the very beginning. They were important to him. So why would they not be important to him in the end? But they will be days of celebration. Glorious celebrations. All right. The celebration of this feast day is in anticipation of the actual event that will be fulfilled after the 1,000-year reign of Hamashiach. And yearly, the nations on the earth must bring their offerings. That's what it says in the prophecy. Now, As there will be no more time, Alahayam will set the currents of this yearly event, and of course, all of the Gentile nations remaining on the earth after the war of Har Magadan must celebrate this feast day. This celebration will occur once a year for the next 1,000 years. It will be by keeping this feast day that the calculation of the 1,000-year reign of Hamashiach will be known, by the numbering of this feast day as it goes by. Alahayam will be keeping tabs on the passage of life, which will be our moments. So we'll have no more time, but we'll have moments. And this is how we will be able to keep tabs of the 1,000 years. As the celebration goes by, we know, okay, that's first celebration, second celebration. Now we're down to the 100th celebration of the Feast of Tabernacles. Now we've reached the 500th celebration of the Feast of Tabernacles. Now we've reached the 900th celebration, the 900th the 900th celebration of the Feast of Tabernacles, until we reach the 999th celebration of the Feast of Tabernacles. Now we know we only have one last celebration left before that wicked Gadriel is released. That last war to be fought, but not by us. And then it is all over. All wickedness is destroyed forever. Oh yes, Alahayam, He will teach us how to keep tabs. Because yes, we were using the sun to keep time, and time in the form of seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, and years. But now He is going to teach us His way of keeping tabs of the quote unquote years. All right? He's going to teach us how to do that. Verse, and you know what? I want to say this. Now we, the 12 tribes, we don't have a sin nature. And we have eternal life. We're immortal, in other words. All right? We're immortal. Because of who we have become now, there's going to be a lot of things we will be able to access. A lot of things accessible to us. The heavenly things. The mysteries. We will have access to the mind of Alahayam Yahweh. Well, we have Hamashiach with us. So nothing will be hidden from us. Nothing. Things have been hidden from us because of sin. But now all of that is removed. And we will be just like the angels. We will have access to the heavens, to knowledge, to the mind of Alahayam, His plans, His purpose, everything. His power, even. We will have total access. So keeping tabs would not be a big issue for us. We would just know it. Because now we're hooked up to Him. All right? Now we're down to verse 17 to 19 of Zechariah chapter 14. And it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Yerushalayim to worship Hamalak, Yahweh ol Sabaoth, even unto them, even upon them shall be no rain. All right? He's taken rain away from them. Let's look at verse 18. And if the family of Matzarayam go not up and come not that have no rain, there shall be the plague, wherewith Yahweh will smite the heathen that come not up to keep the feast of tabernacles. So the first warning to those that don't come up that 1 year, there'll be no rain. And the second time you choose not to go up, you're struck down with the same plague where you will melt where you stand. That same plague. He's not playing. He's not playing. He gives you a chance the first time, the second time, and the warning will be you experience a famine. You will experience a drought. Actually, that's the right word. You will experience a drought in your land. Everybody else is green and prospering, and you have a drought in your land. You gotta know that you've done something wrong. But you persist because, hey, I can get some food from my neighbors. I don't really need to go up. You choose not to go up the second time, you're dead. That person is dead. And it says here, Yahweh, he will smite the person. And don't worry about Matzarayam. I know you might think, well, this has to do with the Egyptians. No. Matzarayam is just a word used there to represent the house of bondage. We all came from the house of bondage all over the world. All the different nations that we're living in, those were our houses of bondage. Because if he's speaking of the families of the earth, if they don't come to Yerushalayim, why would he stipulate only the country Matzarayim? It has nothing to do with a country because there are no more countries. These now are the nations of the people of the countries that we once lived in. They're all called house of bondage. Let's look at verse 19. This shall be the punishment of Matzarayim, and the punishment of all nations that come not up to keep the feast of tabernacles. So again, the punishment of Matzarayim, the house of bondage, will be the places where we were all scattered. And then there were countries, nations that we were not living in. That's why he's saying the punishment of all nations. So those are the other nations. All right, that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Keeping the feast days of Alahayam was part of Yashra'al's covenant with him, as they were memorial days that we had to keep, as he so commanded our forefathers. We keep all of the feast days, even the ones already fulfilled, as he told us we are to keep them throughout our generations. The ones that were fulfilled by the first coming of Hamashiach serves as memorials to us, to remind us of what he had done for us, even losing his life. Speaking of Hamashiach. The feast days that are not fulfilled yet, we still keep them in anticipation of our deliverance by the second coming of Hamashiach. And not only our deliverance, but the utter destruction of all of our enemies forever, then to dwell in eternity with him. Let's look at Leviticus chapter 23, verse 1. And Yahweh spoke unto Masha, saying, Speak unto Hamanai all Yashraal, the children of Yashraal, and say unto them, concerning the feast of Yahweh, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feasts. So they were important to Alahayam. He made them important to our forefathers, so they're important to us today, and they will be important to us forever. There are memorials. He's not just going to wipe them away and then, okay, they're fulfilled, so we don't need to remember them. No, there will be our memorials. You know how some people like to celebrate their wedding anniversary to remember the day they got married? And when we were living in our in under the system, well, we were living in our, well, I'm not living in the country that I once lived in, but there were certain anniversaries that we used to celebrate to remember our independence. They call it Independence Day, and so on and so forth, right? Well, if the wicked does that, if the wicked they're doing that, Alahayam, he was the first to do it with his feast days. We were celebrating feast days for a very long time. You can track it all the way back to even Noah after the flood. All right? So Alahayam will have strict punishments on those who are of the Gentile nations, of course, those who will choose to disobey his command to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles by going up into their place, by not going up into their place to worship Alahayam Yahweh in Yerushalayim, because they have not gone up, they have chosen to disobey him. And of course, there will be punishments. The first warning will be a drought that will come upon the persons, and the drought will greatly affect their land and its production. The second warning will be their last warning. If they fail to come the following feast event, the second warning will be destruction by means of the same plague, where they will melt where they are. This plague will affect those who are already going through the drought. And notice that this will be in effect for the Gentile nations, not Yashraal. We're living in perfection, so no, it's not about us. This is about the Gentile nations. Yashraal will not have a sin nature, therefore we will not be disobedient to Alahayam. The Gentile nations, on the other hand, will still have their sin nature until after the millennial reign of Hamashiach. If after the millennial reign and they still continue to worship Alahayam, then they will receive their rewards. But this will not occur until the very end of time. So that reward would be their sin nature will be cleansed out of them, and they will receive eternal life. They'll eat of the fruit of the tree of life, just like what we have done previously. Therefore, these next 1,000 years will be the final sifting of the Gentile nations, giving them ample amount of opportunities to choose righteousness and to live in total obedience to Alahayam and his commandments. So they're going to have plenty of time to get it right. And they will have no provocation except if they allowed envy or jealousy to creep in. All right? And that can happen. That can happen. Alahayam will have, sorry, I read that already. Let's move down to verse 20 of Zechariah chapter 14, 20 and 21. In that day shall there be upon the bells of the horses holiness unto Yahweh, and the pots in Yahweh's house, I mean that's his tabernacle, shall be like the bowls before the altar. Verse 21, this is the last verse of Zechariah 14. Yea, every pot in Yerushalayim and in Yehoiada shall be holiness unto Yahweh O Sabaoth, and all they that sacrifice shall come and take of them and seethe therein. So every pot in Yerushalayim, that's the city, and in Yehoiada, that's the country, that's the province. Because Yerushalayim, the city, is found in the province of Yehoiada. Okay? This is not talking about the tribes. And let's continue on 21. And in that day there shall be no more the Canaanite in the house of Yahweh all Sabaoth. And Canaanite, that's the offspring of Ham. Those are the ones that we were supposed to drive out of our land, the Canaanites, in all their various forms. All right. Now we have arrived at the worship of Alahayam Yahweh, what it will look like during this time of the 1,000-year reign of Hamashiach and in his tabernacle. The one festival where everyone must attend at Yerushalayim will be the Feast of Tabernacles. There will be sacrifices made unto Yahweh along with the offerings, similar to those that our forefathers had to do when they were in the wilderness and when they were living in our land. This will be no different, with the exception that there will be no more sacrifices for atonement of sins, as the devil will be locked away and a seal set upon him. Yes, the Gentiles left on the earth will be the only ones to have a sin nature, which will still be active, but still be deactivated as long as they choose to be obedient to Alahayam. So if they choose to not obey, he's going to deal with them himself. There's no need for repentance. There's no need for atonement. Atonement was given to the 12 tribes of Yashraal. The atonement for their sins, that is. All right. At this point in time, it will come down to a matter of choice, and they will have the ability to master their sin nature, but only if they want to. However, there still remains the command to bring their offerings for the Feast of Tabernacles that many will still fail to obey. Alahayam has said that those who fail to come up to Yerushalayim in their appointed place, speaking of the Gentiles, he will cause a drought to fall upon them. This will act as a warning because if it happens again, then they will be destroyed. Second time, you're out. This will be their final sifting. And know this, that this will be the generations that will be born after Gadriel is put in the abyss. All right? Therefore, it will be their inherent nature. Therefore, it will be their inherent evil nature that will condemn them. So if they do not master, here's the thing. Here's the thing. If they, okay, the provokers, the ones that will provoke them and tempt them to sin, has been locked away, deactivated. All right. Alahayam has commanded them, all you need to do once a year, bring your offering. Bring your offering to me to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. Once a year, once a year. If they obey and they comply to his command, they'll be able to master their sin nature. It will not be a problem to them. But if they have an inkling of envy or jealousy or I don't really feel like going, rebellion, that ability to master their sin nature will start to dissolve, which will lead them now to rebel. And once they rebel the first time, trust me, they're going to rebel the second time. And Alahayam will destroy them where they are. But he will help them, if they're obedient, to be able to master their sin nature. He will help them. Just like how he helps us today. That when we're obedient to him, he helps us. So why would he not help them? If he wanted to, he could have just destroyed all of them and done with it. But no. He wants to give them a chance. He wants to give them an opportunity to choose him. And always choose him. Let's look at Leviticus chapter 23, verse 33. And Yahweh spoke unto Masha, saying, Speak unto Habanai all Yashrael, the children of Yashrael, saying, The 15th day of this 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days unto Yahweh. On the first day shall be a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein. 7 days you shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. On the 8th day shall be a holy convocation unto you, and you shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. It is a solemn assembly, and you shall do no servile work therein. These are the feast days of Yahweh, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations, to offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh, a burnt offering, a sacrifice, and drink offerings, everything upon his day. Beside beside Hashabbathawath, meaning the Sabbaths of Yahweh, and beside your gifts, and beside your vows, and beside all your freewill offerings, which you give unto Yahweh. So, the Feast of Tabernacles, we are called to celebrate it for 7 days. The first day is a holy convocation, and the 8th day is a holy convocation. So the days in between are regular days. All right? So it was in the past, so it will be in the future. Those that come up to their allotted places to bring their offerings and their sacrifices, they have to be prepared to be celebrating this feast day, this feast of tabernacles for 8 days. So it's not like they can come the first day and go back home and then come back again. No, they have to remain where they are, the places that are allotted to them, for the 8 days. And this is probably why a lot of them may not want to do it, because, hey, I got to go back home. I got to farm my land. I got to do this. No. They're going to find excuses why they don't want to go. All kinds of excuses. So it's for the first day and then on the 8th day. All right. The bells on the horses will serve as a reminder to all those, especially of the Gentile nations, that there must always be holiness unto Yahweh. That should be at the forefront of our minds. That's why Ahawaran, who is Aaron, he wore that plate on his turban, holiness unto Yahweh, for everyone that looks upon him and they see these words, those words should be etched on our minds. The bells will ring as the horses will move, and as the bells are heard, then the thought of holiness will enter into the minds of these Gentiles. You know, there is such a thing as association. Do you know that there's certain, if something happens, whether it's good or bad, and I've experienced this, and it still happens to me, certain songs that I hear can take me back to a period of time when something happens. I'll give you an example. I remember when I was a very young child, I don't know, maybe about 10 years old, and my mom was getting ready to well, she was living in the US at one point in time, but she came back for a while, and now she was getting ready to head back to the US, right? And the family threw a little party, a little house party for her, like a going away party. And I remember there was a moment of time that I heard a particular song. I'm not going to tell you what the song is. It was one of those oldie goldie songs, because that's what our family loved, these oldie goldies. And I remember standing there watching her singing along with this song. And I was I felt so sad that my mom was leaving me again, right? I mean, the plan of hers was to move away from the island and bring us with her eventually. She was working towards that. So it wasn't like she had a really good job in the States and she just came back to collect her um I don't know, something that she needed to get her green card back in those days. I don't know. I can't remember. But she had to come back in order to go back, right? To receive her green card. And there was this song that was playing, and I would never forget that song. And every time I hear it, in fact, I don't even like this song. I don't like it. Even up to this day, I do not like that song. Even though my mom has long passed away, you know, it just, this song is, to me, associates sadness. Okay, let me say this again. Sadness is associated with this song. Why? Because I remember, I mean, I can literally place myself there at where I was when I was 10 years old, looking at my mom, laughing and happy and singing, but I was sad. She never went back though. She never went back. No. she It affected me so deeply and she was told not to leave me. Yeah, otherwise it could affect my learning and so on and so forth. So she never left. And she ended up staying for the whole time. For my whole time that I remained on the island, that is, right? But I'm just giving you that as an example. And then there are times when you something really good happens and you hear a song and you can, like, oh my goodness, I remember when this song played that this happened, you know. And it's not only about song, right? It's just different things that we can associate, events that has taken place that can bring us a memory of what happened. And that memory almost, it serves as a remembrance of the emotions we were feeling that time and all the different things. So these bells on the horses will serve as a sweet memory that we must have holiness unto Yahweh. All right? Now, maybe all the horses will have bells so that we're constantly reminded about the holiness of Yahweh. I don't know. It just says that the horses, let's go back to that scripture. There should be bells of the horses, holiness unto Yahweh. All right? So on the bells of the horses, you're going to have this inscription, holiness unto Yahweh. And we can read. So every time we hear the bells, oh yes, holiness unto Yahweh. But it will be easy for the 12 tribes, but not as easy for the Gentile nations, unfortunately. And that's why they need to be reminded about keeping holiness, being holy unto Yahweh. Just as it was for Ahawaran when he wore the turban that had the same words etched on a plate of pure gold, this too will help those Gentiles who want to choose to be obedient to Alahayam to do so. So again, you see how Alahayam is helping the Gentiles to nudge them in the right direction. They hear the bells, right? Because this is only in Yerushalayim. This is throughout the land. There's only one land mass now. So throughout the land, the horses will have the bells. Right? And it will help them, especially them, because they're going to need help to remember holiness unto Yahweh. So another way, he's helping them. All right? Let's look at Shamawath, chapter 28, verse 26. This is the book of Exodus, chapter 28, verse 36. And you shall make a plate of pure gold and engrave upon it like the engravings of a signet, holiness to Yahweh. And you shall put it on a blue lace, and it may be upon the turban, upon the forefront of the turban it shall be, and it shall be upon Ahawaran's forehead, that Ahawaran may bear the iniquity of the holy things, which Habanai ol Yashwa'al shall hallow in all their holy gifts. And it shall be always upon his forehead, that they may be accepted before Yahweh. So it's upon his forehead, that means it's on his mind. And when they looked upon Ahawaran with this these words etched in gold, holiness to Yahweh, they will have to remember these words. All right, that's our forefathers. Alahayam Yahweh will require holiness from all the inhabitants of the earth and nothing less. The 12 tribes of Yashrael will be holiness unto him, because they will be cleansed of their sin nature, unlike Gentiles. I know I keep repeating this, but I just have to keep reminding us this is the reason why. This will be an important time for the Gentiles, who will not face the temptations of the last remaining devil and his demons, yet they will be measured by their obedience. Let me repeat that. They will not have to face the temptations of Gadriel and his demons, the fallen angels and the Nephilim spirits, the unclean spirits. Yet they will be measured by their obedience, whether they will follow the command of Alahayam or not. It should be easy for them to obey him, as they will have no provocation from the evil spirits. Yet the sin nature, which is prone to sin and disobedience, will still lead many of the Gentiles to choose to disobey. And the minute they allow themselves to become envious or jealous or rebellious, right? Because they don't want to do what they're told to do. From the time they enter into that realm, then they will have no power, no ability to prevent themselves from going the next step into the darkness, the next step away from Alahayam. All right. Once they disobey, that's it. Once they walk in disobedience, that's it. If they continue to walk in obedience, they will have the power to resist. In fact, they will have no desire to rebel, because they're obedient. They're obedient not only because they are afraid of being destroyed, they're obedient because they want to worship Alahayam. You see, the ones that are complying, submitting because they're afraid of being destroyed, they're still going to turn against Alahayam at the end of the day. They're just waiting for the right opportunity. So there's still two kinds of people here. Still two kinds. And that's why Alahayam is going to take this 1,000 years, these 1,000 years, to keep sifting them, sifting them, sifting them. We know that sacrifices will continue, but these will be according to the commands of Alahayam, which Hamashiach will instruct us on how to carry out these sacrifices. So Hamashiach is going to be with us. So and like I said, we will have access to the heavens, to the mind of Alahayam. There will be nothing withheld from us. All right? The pots mentioned that are compared to the bowls before the altar of Alahayam in heaven will be used to seethe the flesh of the animals that will be sacrificed, just like it was before with our forefathers. So the flesh is cooked and then it's eaten before Alahayam. That's part of the ritual, the sacrifices. Shamawath chapter 29 verse 31. That's Exodus 29 verse 31. And you shall take the ram of the consecration and seethe his flesh in the holy place. And Aharon and his sons shall eat the flesh of the ram and the bread that is in the basket by the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. So we see the high priest along with his sons, who will be the priests. They will sit and eat the flesh of the ram and the bread at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. That was part of the ritual. Verse 33, and they shall eat those things wherewith the atonement was made to consecrate and to sanctify them, but a stranger shall not eat thereof, because they are holy. And thus shall you do unto Aharon and to his sons according to all things which I have commanded you. 7 days shall you consecrate. That's mala'ah, to be accomplished, to be ended, to be satisfied. So 7 days shall you consecrate them. So this was the time. This is showing you that the part of the sacrifice, part of the ritual of sacrificing, it has to do with eating a portion of the sacrifice. All right. So we're not looking at the particular feast day when this happened. We're just looking at the ritual of what um, the sacrificing entails, because we're going to see later on that Hamashiach, when he is making a sacrifice on the Day of Atonement for us, that he too will sit and eat with us. You're going to see that. Maybe in the next study. Yes, in the next study, part 7. Oh, actually, it's right here. It's right here. Okay. It is, but we're going to see it again in part 7. It is evidence to us that Alahayam will reinstitute his sacrifices again, but with some small differences. No more sacrifices for sins, but all the other sacrifices will continue, like the burnt offering, in the manner of free will offerings, peace offerings, and such. So you're still going to have those free will offerings, all those different, you make a vow, all those offerings we're still going to have. If you notice how the sacrifice and by the way, those are voluntary offerings. But then you have the involuntary offering, which would be the Feast of Tabernacles, right? If you notice how the sacrifice and offering was done at the feast called the Day of Atonement, where the flesh of the bullock was seethed in the pots, then eaten with bread by the priest and high priest in the days of our forefathers, so Hamashiach with his saints will do the same thing, starting from when he and the 12 tribes of Yashraal will be in the tabernacle for the first time together. So let's look at Ezekiel chapter 44 verse 1. Then he brought me back the way of the gate of the outward sanctuary, which looked towards the east, and it was shut. Then said Yahweh unto me, this gate shall be shut, it shall not be opened, and no man shall enter in by it, because Yahweh Alahayam ol Yashraal has entered in by it. Therefore it shall be shut. So he came in with his glory. That's when Ezekiel saw the glory entering into the temple, the tabernacle, the sanctuary. Verse 3, it is for the prince, Hana Shaya'ah, the one lifted up. We're going to see this in another scripture, in another chapter of Ezekiel, less in the next study. Yeah, part 7. So Hana Shaya'ah, the prince, he shall sit in it to eat bread before Yahweh. He shall enter by the way of the porch of that gate, and shall go out the way of the same. So he comes in through the east gate and he leaves by the east gate. All right. The scripture that we looked at previously in Shamawath, chapter 29, helps to affirm that as Alahayam had commanded his people to do for the Day of Atonement, so it will happen again, but this time Hamashiach will be officiating over this very important feast day, fulfilling its purpose to reconcile the 12 tribes forever. We have to understand that Gentiles will not be permitted in our city, Yarowashalam, and our tabernacle ever again. This is confirmed by the following scriptures. Let's look at Yawa'al chapter 3, verse 17. But before we go that, let me say this again. Ezekiel 44, verse 1, we're going to look at this again in the next study. So don't think that I've just kind of glazed over it. But I want to compare it with another scripture from Ezekiel to show you something. But I'll do that in the next study. So let's look at Yawa'al chapter 3 verse 17. So shall you know that I am Yahweh Alahayam, dwelling in Sayawan, my holy mountain. Then shall Yahweh be holy, and there shall no strangers pass through her anymore. So strangers here, we're talking about foreigners, not of the lineage of Yashraal. It doesn't matter if they receive a portion of our inheritance, they're still considered Gentiles per se. All right. Yes, they will be in covenant with Alahayam, but they're still strangers. They'll not be able to mix with us for the 1,000 years and definitely afterwards. They have their place, and their place is to serve us. They're the ones that are going to keep our flocks. They're the ones that are going to keep our herds. They're the ones that are going to farm for us. We're not going to do any manual labor anymore if we don't want to. If we do it, it's because it's a form of pleasure for us to do a little house cleaning per se. Gardening, farming. It's up to us. But generally, they're the ones that are going to do it all. All right? We will be the priests unto Alahayam, Yahweh. So we can't be priests and farming at the same time. All right? If we have we're gonna have our homes and we're gonna have our little kitchen garden. We don't even need to do much in our gardens because everything is going to be perfect. We're not gonna have weeds and all that stuff. No, everything is going to be perfect. But like I said, if you want to do a little something because it gives us a little pleasure to go and feed the flocks. All right. But we're not going to have all those things in our city anyway. They'll be on the outskirts. All right. They'll be on the outskirts. And Yerushalayim is going to be greatly expanded. All right. Greatly expanded. Zakaryah 14 verse 21. Oh, before I say that, because I am understanding certain things about how it's going to be the layout of the land. The layout of the land is going to be similar to the layout of the tabernacle. You have the outer court, and then the inner court, and then the most holies. The layout of the land is going to be similar. All right. So we have not seen the land called Yashraal per se, although the whole land is going to be called Yashraal. They're not going to be countries like America and Canada. There's not going to be that anymore. It's the whole one land mass is going to be called Yashraal. But Yerushalayim, the city, is going to be where we are going to dwell. All 12 tribes. So it's not going to be that tiny little spot where that they have in currently in our land. No, it's going to be a great expansive piece of property, land, because it will be our city where we live, all 12 tribes. And those outside of the city, that will be the Gentiles, they'll be living outside of the parameters of the city. And it's going to be holy. The land, the city, Yaruashlam, is going to be holy. All right? And that's why he does not want anyone to trod on his land anymore. They have trodden down our city in the olden times many times. Many times. So he said, no more. Don't want no Canaanite. I don't want any strangers in my land. In my city. I give you a portion outside of the city. It's still Yashara'al. It's all going to be called Yashara'al. All right? But you're going to have it, anyway, I don't know. Beyond that, I don't know. But that's the understanding that I'm getting as I keep going into the prophecies, that it's not going to be as complex as it is today with all these different countries and whatnot. No. No, it's not going to be like that. You'll have territories, but all of it is going to be Yashra'al. And then you have Yerushalayim. All right? Yerushalayim is where we are going to live. So let's look at Zechariah chapter 14, verse 21. Yeah, every part in Yerushalayim and in Yahweh shall be holiness unto Yahweh, all Sabaoth, and all they that sacrifice shall come and take of them and see therein. We just looked at this. And in that day there shall be no more the Canaanite in the house of Yahweh, all Sabaoth. So the house of Yahweh is his tabernacle. And his tabernacle is where? In Yerushalayim. So he's not allowing any more foreigners in his city and in his tabernacle. They're out forever. All right? They're out forever. And one thing that I had looked at, maybe I'll get back to it. I don't know if he's going to lead me in that direction. But I had started it and then I stopped because I just didn't feel that it was, I felt it was leading away from this study. But it's still part of the study. But it probably fits better with chapter 20 or 21 or even 22. And it is looking at how what life will be like after this war of Har Magadan for the 1,000-year reign, and even what life will look like after the 1,000-year reign. And especially, those two times, yes. Because how life will be during the 1,000-year reign, it will be the same, except it will be better. Better because it will be a new heaven, a new earth, a new Yerushalayim. All right? So what I was leading into is looking at the structure of the government, the structure of us as the inhabitants now on the earth. Because there will be a structure. There's always been a structure. Right now, even in the heavens, there is a structure of how things are governed, how the angels are governed. You have the angels that are closest to Alahayam, and then you have the angels that are not. There's a system, a tier system, not making anyone, well, if you understand that you have the seven archangels and you have the cherubim and the seraphim and the orphanim, and how close they work how close together that they work together to bring the glory either to the earth or take it away, and they work together to all right, let's see. When you see these angels, they have six wings and feet like calf and whatnots. All right, they're closely associated with Alahayam. They're connected to him. Why? Because that's the position that he has given to them. And he's given them the power to go along with what he has created them and the position that he's given to them. Okay, let's look at the anointed cherub who was Gadriel, Lucifer, or whatever you want to call it. He was the highest of all the angels. All right? And he was covered with jewels. He was beautiful to behold. So when you understand that there are levels, all right, in the system, levels in the government of Alahayam, in the heavens, so he established the same thing amongst our people. All right? He did. Why? Because structure helps us to know where we ought to be and what we need to do. All right? All right. But that's something that I may have to take a deeper look at in the next coming chapters, maybe not 20, more like 21 and 22, so that we can have a clear idea of what, not clear idea, because it's never ever going to be clear, but we can have an idea of what life would be like during the 1,000-year reign and afterwards, or what the earth will look like and afterwards. So now we will conclude this amazing study of Zechariah chapter 14 with its many connections to the book of Revelation and the book of Yawa'al, and not to forget the book of Ezekiel, Yeshaiah, and Jeremiah. We must understand that the truth of end times events are hidden in the prophecies, because only those with eyes to see will see, and ears to hear, and a heart to understand will do so, because they want to know the truth no matter what, even if it means that you have to discard what you thought you knew. But a lot of people don't want to do that. Everyone is saying this, so I want to say this too. There are puzzle pieces that first must be revealed as truth. Then we'll be able to fit them in together to form a big picture, right? And this is how he works. He does not give us the big picture and then, no, he gives us pieces of the puzzle and then he shows us how they fit in to form a big picture. This is how he's always been teaching me. All right? The end times are here, whether many people will confess this is so or not. Many of our people don't believe that this is the end times because they love living in this world. But hey, let me tell you something. These devils that be and their agents, they're gearing up for a second round of commands and demands. Trying to use different words. It's coming again. It's coming again. This time, this is it. This time, this is it. There's no let up after this. No matter what they tell you, don't believe them. This is it. It sounds fantastical and even to others fanatical. But it is real and it will occur. You tell people you're in the end times, they say you're crazy. There's no such thing. Many people will believe in aliens and UFOs and all the stories that go along with these events, meaning events of UFOs. But when it comes to the truth found in biblical prophecies, they are taught that they are just fairy tales, figment of desperate imaginations. People don't want to believe it. They rather believe in space travel, other planets out there with aliens living on it, all kinds of things they believe. Right? Even our brethren believe in that nonsense. Some of them. All right? Because they keep talking about spaceships coming for us. I call them chariots. I never heard anything in my life. Go look at a picture of a chariot and compare it to a picture of a spaceship. And tell me if they look anything alike. All right. Regardless, we are true believers and the offspring of Abraham. No otherwise, and must conduct. Regardless, we as the true believers and the offspring of Abraham, we know otherwise and must conduct ourselves accordingly, even if it means that we will be ostracized by our peers, family members, and even friends. And that's what's been happening. I've been hearing about people, and this started even with this thing that happened almost 4 years ago now, 3.5 years ago. When you start telling people the truth about it, they don't want to hear you. And if you don't do what they're doing, going and taking the toxin and lining up for this and lining up for that, they don't want anything to do with you. You can't come to my house if you have not taken the toxin. There are some people like that was saying that to their own family members. You have not taken the toxin, so I don't want you coming to our house. People were being ostracized because of this thing. But it's worse when you're being ostracized for truth or because of truth. All right? But these are the last days, and we were told that these things were going to happen. So this should come as no surprise to us. We're coming to the end of the race, especially for the southern kingdom. What anyone thinks or believes about us should bear little relevance to us at this point of time. You know why? Because if our family members disown us or ostracize us, Hamashiach, Alahayam, Yahweh, he's going to give us new family members. If our friends decide that, hey, we don't want to be friends with you anymore because you're a quack, you got feathers growing out of your ears, and they don't agree with your doctrine and whatnot, it's all good because we got new friends coming. When we gather together, we're all going to be friends together. All right? And if we're ostracized by even our peers, same thing. We're going to get new peers. So we're not losing anything. We're just losing dead branches. That's all. Just look at them as the dead branches. All right? We're looking for living branches so that we can, walk together in peace and harmony. These ones here, the dead branches, create a lot of grief, right? You ever try talking to a dead branch? A lot of grief, right? A lot of grief that they bring to your heart because they cannot, the truth cannot penetrate. For no matter what you say, it will not penetrate. Even if you can show it to them, physical proof, they still can't receive it because they're dead. Dead branches. We have an awesome inheritance waiting for us. And that's, when I said awesome, our brain cannot comprehend how awesome an inheritance we have waiting for us. Yes, we have heard about them. Well, we call it mansions, but they're just dwelling places. But they're beautiful dwelling places that we don't have to pay a dime for, or we don't have to build. All right? We're talking about vineyards and all kind of orchards, all kind of places for us. We're talking about living at a time or for the rest of our lives without sin, that annoyance that leads us to constantly be like, oh my, I can't believe that entered into my mind. I can't believe I did that. I got to repent. All right? Living at a time when there's complete peace and serenity, perfection. You breathe fresh air. Oh, you drink the sweetest sweet water with no impurities whatsoever in the air or in the water or in the food. The food would taste magnificent. Even the fragrance from the fruits and the flowers and the tree, everything is going to be magnificent. Can you imagine living like that? Can you imagine living in a place that is like that? I mean, when we're here on the earth and we go someplace and we see a beautiful sunset, it takes our breath away. We go to another country and we see a magnificent scene and we're like, oh my goodness, this is heaven, right? That's the first thought that comes to our mind because it's beautiful. Well, those things grouped together is no comparison to our inheritance that we will receive. The beauty that is waiting for us, the splendor that we'll be living in. And we will love one another. There'll be no envy amongst us. No, I want to be top dog. I want to be leader. I want to be king. I want to be queen. None of that. We will all love, genuinely love one another. Because those evil desires are gone. Those evil those evil ways that we had are gone. It's just perfection now. Can you imagine perfection? You will never grow tired. You'll never grow sleepy. You will never feel hungry. You will never feel thirsty. But yet you'll be able to eat and drink because of the great pleasure it gives you, and it gives Alahayam to see his children enjoying the fruits of his labor. And there's more. But we'll talk about that in the coming chapters. There's more. Because our bodies now are perfect. We will never sweat again. We will never feel hot or cold. Can you imagine that? Adam and Hawa, when they were living in the Garden of Eden, they didn't have to bathe. No, they didn't have to bathe. There's no such thing as bacteria, viruses, none of that, all that, nothing. No sicknesses, no sorrow. In fact, we're not even going to remember anything that was traumatic, anything that was bad. We will not remember. We remember the good things and the good times, but nothing else. No evil be able to enter into our minds. So all the bad things that we have seen and experienced and heard will be gone. Gone forever. So that's what I'm saying. We have no clue the inheritance waiting for us. And because we don't know, we sacrifice our inheritance to grab hold of the things of this earth. We compromise ourselves, losing our inheritance because of this life that we're living here on this earth, this wretched life. One that promises pure joy, pure peace, and pure love, to name a few of those wonderful things that we will enjoy. That's on top of everything else. Pure peace, pure love, pure joy. Can you imagine being happy forevermore? Never ever. Listen, you can stump your toe and you wouldn't feel any pain. And that wouldn't happen anyway. But I'm just saying that, giving you an example. Right? You'd be able to walk on stones and you wouldn't feel that they wouldn't like poke your feet and create any, there's no pain. No pain whatsoever. Anyways, when we get to chapters 20 and 21, 21 and 22, we're going to go back here again. All right. Yet, to receive this inheritance will come at a cost, which many are not willing to sacrifice for at this moment. Maybe the inheritance seems far-fetched or imaginary. You know why? Because people don't study for themselves. All right? You hear people talking, oh yeah, we're going to go into the wilderness, 12 tribes going into the wilderness, and you ask them, and what's going to happen? They don't know. They just heard other people talking about it. They talk about it too. They have no clue what is going to happen. All right? Yes, they say that they believe, but even that too is far-fetched and imaginary. And so our relationship with Alahayam is superficial at best, and this is the reason why so many are losing the race to the finishing line. We're closing in to the finishing line, and many of our brethren are not going to make it. They've given up. They've surrendered themselves to the beast. Many of our brethren will perish. They will be destroyed forever. But Alahayam knew that this will happen. And for this reason, he will cause the few to become many once again, to fulfill his spoken word to our forefathers and to the prophets. We shall multiply and we shall not be few. And we looked at that in a previous study. In fact, previous studies, that he already knew from the very beginning that only a remnant will be saved. A remnant of the northern kingdom, a remnant of the southern kingdom. Together we're still a remnant, because we need to multiply to cover this earth. And we, the 12 tribes of Yashva'al, will be the multitude on the earth. The Gentiles that are coming in with us will be the minority. We will be the great majority. All right? And with that, I will say this is the ending of this part 6. Please stay tuned for part 7, the final one. It's going to be quite sweet. I was just checking here to make sure, because there was a thought that entered into my mind as I was reading this. Yes, I think I did address it about being that we will multiply. Yes, we will multiply and we shall not be few. Yes. And that is a promise that he gave to Abraham. And yes, you might say, well, we are in the majority, we have multiplied, but we have not multiplied beyond the Gentile nations that we have on the earth today. And many of our brethren are wicked. And many of them are going to perish, so we will not be the great number that we are today. All right, and if there are 8 billion people on the earth, if 1 billion of those people are people, all 12 tribes, including, well, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom together, we're still in the minority. But Alahayam is going to switch that around in the end. He's going to turn it around. We must be the majority on the earth. All right? So with that, I want to conclude with the blessing for Yashraal and then the command that he gave to us that we need to recite as we go in, as we come out, as we get up, as we sit down, as we lie down, as we wake up. So let's start with the blessing for Yashraal, the Barayam, the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 6, verse 24 to 26. Yabarakat Yahweh, Wayashamarak, may Yahweh bless you and keep you. Ya'ar Yahweh panayo alayak wayachanak, may Yahweh cause his face to shine upon you and have favor upon you. Yasha'a Yahweh panayo alayak wayasham lak shalawam, may Yahweh lift up his face upon you and give you peace. And now let's say the command of Alahayam from Deuteronomy 6, verse 4 and 5, the Barayam 6, verse 4 and 5. Shama'o Yashra'al, Yahweh Alahayana, Yahweh Achad, wa Ahabath Ath, Yahweh Alahayak, Bakal Babak, wa Bakal Napashat, wa Bakal Ma'adak. So it says, oh, hear, O Yashra'al, Yahweh, our Alahayam is one Yahweh, and you shall love Yahweh, your Alahayam, with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. And I say to you, Shalom, Shalom, all praises to the Most High, Abba Yah.